Kadesh Yameinu Kikedem.
May be seated. This is one of those weeks in which you put down the Parsha and you speak about what's going on. Israel is not perfect. I hate this preface. Excuse my language, but I only have 2 more sermons here. But what kind of BS is that? Thanks, Howard. I have to justify that something isn't perfect before I defend, before I explain, before I learn about it. America isn't perfect. Iran isn't perfect. I am not perfect. Nothing in this world is perfect. In what world do we expect a country, a person, or even an experience to be perfect? Yet with Israel, this seems to be a need for the world to see. And it's because, and the reason we have to say this, is because Jews are scared. We are scared that we may be wrong about Israel. After all, really important men, Trevor Noah and John Oliver, seem to be okay with thousands and thousands of rockets raining down on Israel. They're smart guys, right? We are scared that if we don't say to our friends this preface, they won't be able to hear the words that come out of our mouths. After all, they clearly have all the history and current climate experience to know the situations of our brothers and sisters are going through. We are scared as defenders of peace in the Middle East and the ally to every minority feeling pain in America. After all, these oppressed groups will certainly come to our aid when needed. I read a post from several friends feeling abandoned at the moment that stated, first they came for the LGBTQ, and I stood up because love is love. And then they came for the immigrants, and I stood up because families belong together. And then they came for the black community, and I stood up because Black Lives Matter. And then they came for me, and I stood alone because I am a Jew. This is, of course, a play on words that were memorialized during the Holocaust. Then there's the phrase that I hate even more. I can be an anti-Zionist without being an anti-Semite. While in theory, this could be true, every single Jew who knows an ounce of history knows that this will not be true. Anti-Semitism is embedded so deeply in anti-Semitism, which even the idea that Jews don't need a land is humbly a death sentence, that today it cannot be separated. These words are attributed to Rabbi Jonathan Sacks of blessed memory. Of course, one legally and religiously can be Jewish without being pro-Israel, but you will undoubtedly and quickly fall into crowds of extreme hate towards Jews. This is not a Trump thing, and this is not a Biden-Obama thing. This is an always thing. And it is playing out in our streets. First, you'll hear it. From river to the sea, Palestine must be free. This is not a call for peace, nor is it a call for a two-state solution. It's not even a call for the absurdity of a one-state solution. Read the words. This means no Israel. Done. Annihilated. And where do these people go? And I'm not going to dignify that with an answer. Second, you will start hearing justifications for thousands of missiles, thousands, plural, aimed at civilian populations, thousands justified by an organization called Hamas. Let me read you an excerpt from their very, very public charter. With their money, their meaning Jews, they took control of the world media, new agencies, the press, publishing houses, broadcasting stations, and others. With their money, they stirred revolutions in various parts of the world with the purpose of achieving their interests and reaping the fruits therewithin. They were behind the French Revolution, the Communist Revolution, and most of the revolutions we heard and hear about here and there. With their money, they formed secret societies such as the Freemason, Rotary Clubs, the Lions, and other different parts of the world, the purpose of sabotaging societies and achieving Zionist interests. With their money, they were able to control imperialistic countries and instigate them and to colonize many countries in order to enable them to exploit their resources and spread corruption. This, what I just read, does not even include the call for killing and murdering in the streets Israelis and Jews alike. Third, you will hear that Israel is occupying Gaza. Please open a textbook. In 2005, Israel unilaterally uprooted its own people and left Gaza. Left Gaza. How do I know this? Well, it's factual. Also, I was in Israel in 2005 in a hotel filled with families sharing hotel rooms of 5 to 8 people in a room for over a year until they found new residencies. Their own country did that. Also, because if Israel was occupying Gaza, they would have never let Hamas rule the land. Not for the Israelis, and also not for the Palestinians. We are not, unequivocally, occupying Gaza. Fourth, the media takes over, and even worse, doesn't care to cover the stories with facts. Hamas was in the AP building. This is a proven fact. The Associated Press in a building with missiles. And headlines neglect Israeli lives. Staging photographs. CNN employed a man who literally, not as a joke, not as a real critique of Israeli government, and I quote, "The world needs a Hitler today." Employed by CNN. Hitler in 2021. In America. I restrained myself from saying BS earlier, and imagine the words I would say to this man. Finally, the attacks will happen and the world will be silent. Not the attacks on Israel. We know they will be silent there. But here, rocks thrown at a synagogue in Tucson, mobs pulling up to restaurants in Los Angeles, asking who is Jewish, and then beginning to beat the American citizens eating dinner. Another mob in New York waiting outside a bagel shop, waiting to attack 2 Jewish men. A firebomb thrown yesterday at Jews in New York. Orthodox Jews beaten in the streets of Brooklyn. College conversations that are unable to happen, making it necessary to defend anti-Semitism on campus. Jewish friends silenced or kicked out of Facebook moms groups, that's right, for being Jewish. They say it's because you're a pro-Israel stance. Newsflash, 90% of Jewish Americans are pro-Israel. Because we know. We know where this goes. None of these stories made the top 100 of CNN or Fox News because we know it's not about Israel for most people. It has become a scapegoat for anti-Semitism. Congregant Ellie Schneider posted a picture stating, "Include Jews in your activism." Sadly, Ellie, the world does not. They see us as a disease. They see us as money, and most of the time they don't see us at all. The foreign prime minister of Pakistan went on CNN this week and told the reporter that this is a foreign minister in a real country, that we're controlling the media because of our deep pockets. He said this live on television. We are the people who died 6 million in one swoop with nowhere to go. We have been ethically cleansed from every country in that region. No Jews in Syria, no Jews in Iran, no Jews in Iraq. We hold not even a percentage point of the Middle East population or space. We are barely a blip on the radar of American population. We are the people who are traded active criminals and terrorists for our own slaughtered brothers and sisters' bodies to give them sacred burials. We're the only military in the history of the world that warned civilians of an attack on terrorist missiles. We're the only country that had to build a defense called the Iron Dome. Had to build a defense called the Iron Dome. We're the only ones who have to live in America and London and France while cars filled with people screaming at the top of their lungs, rape their daughters. Tell me again that Israel's not perfect. Tell me again that anti-Zionism doesn't mean anti-Semitism. Tell me with a straight face and help me understand. Ken Agronoff taught me long ago that one cannot always defeat emotions with logic. That has been something I remind myself before almost every meeting and every email response I send to anyone. It is possible that my words that I just spoke landed on your logic side of the brain, and you do not hear that, and you need the emotional side. I do not blame you. That is human nature. So here are the raw emotions. Israelis and Jews almost unilaterally want a Palestinian state. That's why we left Gaza. We have made that offer 10 times. They want it to be beside a Jewish state. Nearly every article, every single one I have read in the past 2 weeks, and I've read about 50 articles, has made claims for peace and calm and prayers for the Palestinian innocent civilians. It's a clear message inside the Statement of Defense for Israel, and I am not different. Has that been reciprocated? We mourn the loss of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who have been tortured and mauled to death in Syria. We really do. We are a peaceful people. We just prayed for peace 3 times. We desperately, with every fiber in our bodies, want peace and land for all. I am deeply saddened by rabbis and rabbinical students coming out with statements pro-Hamas or anti-Israel. 10 short years ago, I would have never felt such pain. I didn't even know this existed. Some of these individuals were my students, and I feel as if I have failed. I cry real tears knowing that people have turned their backs on their Jewish guides. And all I can say to my friends who feel rabbinic neglect at this moment, I am personally here for all of you. I will make the time. That is my role. And 95% of your rabbis are within the spectrum of your beliefs, and we deeply support Israel and understand it, and we love the state of Israel, and even if some of that love sometimes is clouded by others. I am deeply disappointed in my Minnesota rabbinic colleagues who were able to quickly make statements against Israel or basically every other cause besides our own. The Minnesota rabbis failed us. It was so bad that even with a statement not being able to be reached, which I can comprehend, we were unable to send a prayer. Rabbis couldn't write a prayer for Israel and its people. And I'm not pointing fingers at any individuals. God knows what an incredible job our Minnesota rabbis have done over the last several years. But we failed our people at this moment. I am painfully scared for our children and our synagogues and our people and our country. Last summer, I had to explain racism to my 8-year-old, and now I have to explain war and anti-Semitism. No children should be in bomb shelters for 2 weeks. No children should have to run and duck. No children should have to know war. I am hurt that none of my friends and people from other minorities have reached out to me. Last summer, I was asked by my black friends to merely reach out when the community feels pain, and I have done that consistently, knowing that my love helps them move forward. Not one of them has done that as tears roll down my cheeks. I am heartbroken when the black community, even a subset of that community, does not support Israel and Jews. I am extremely pained for black Jews caught in a tug of war that people place on their being. I am heartbroken that you do not see that we are both from bondage, maybe a different bondage, but a similar pain of hatred just because. And while you claim that I can hide in my skin, and maybe there is truth to that, Jews cannot hide. We couldn't hide from Hitler, and we can't hide in restaurants in America or on social media, and the only hiding we can do is to denounce who we are. I am saddened by the LGBTQ community that has not stood by us. I am proud of organizations like A Wider Bridge and voices like Chen Mazig, and I cannot imagine what a pro-Israel member of the LGBTQ community must feel like right now, having their identity only accepted up until a point that they bring their Judaism with them. Israel is proud of its LGBT community, so is the Jewish community. Hamas is the very opposite. We are kicked out of parades and pink-washed for conversations. As quoted many times this last week, we live in a society where it is more acceptable to be anti-Semitic than it is to be Jewish. Finally, if none of this is registered, let me frankly say, I, Jeremy Fine, am scared. Your friend, your rabbi, and your relative. If you are hearing this, you likely know me. I have opened my home to you, my community to you, my arms to you. I am scared for peoples, plural, humanity, and my life. And like I have been patient with each and every community, able to define its own self, the parameters in which for fear is real and true, I am looking you in the eye. The person most likely to greet you with a smile. The person most likely to crack a beer with you and schmooze. The person who holds your hands at funerals and dances at your weddings and does silly shows about toys and sports, and I am scared. And I am saddened. And I am alone. And you have not reached out. So maybe you do not have the answers for the Middle East. You are amongst good company. And maybe you do not feel you have all the facts. I am not one to say I have all the facts. Maybe you can't understand why Palestinians don't have land, and I can explain the political agenda of Hamas and the PLO over coffee to you. But me, your friend who loves you, flesh and blood, stand here in a world of hurt. I am telling you, your anti-Zionism only ends in anti-Semitism. I am telling you, Israel wants peace and help for the Palestinians. I am telling you, Israel is the first to send aid in Haiti, to India this month, to Palestinians this week. And I am here telling you, Jews are suffering, and to ignore that and you have ignored, more than history, you have ignored reality. And you are asking Jews who feel in their gut right now an indescribable emotion that has turned on in most of us, that you want us to hide in attics again until you have reached the conclusion that the world stood by and did nothing again in the name of hate. That is our story. It has always been our story. And we know it all too well. Shabbat Shalom. We pray. pray together now. We pray for our people. We pray for the world. We pray for each other in America. And we turn to page 155 for the Chatzi Kaddish in the beginning of the Musaf. Please rise.